Hello, good morning, and happy Friday. I think it's Friday. It's Friday, right? Yeah, it is Friday. So, happy Friday. I hope you're having an amazing day so far. Thank you for joining me yet again for another live stream. Today, I'm going to be breaking down proper form and technique for squats. Okay. Now, like I mentioned in the group chat, I'm going to be demonstrating with a dumbbell goblet squat. Hello, Ashley. But 99% of these form cues or these form checks are going to be transferable to a barbell back squat, a barbell front squat, a hack squat, any form of squat, okay? So without further ado, let's get into it. Before we actually start, I'm gonna go over how to find your ideal squat stance, okay? Because everybody's anatomy is going to be different. Everybody's mobility is going to be different. So it's unreasonable to expect everybody to have the exact same squat form, okay? So with that being said, in order to find your ideal squat form, we're actually going to do the box squat test, okay? So all I want you to do is find a nice sturdy bench or chair or even your bed to sit on, and then you're simply just going to do a box squat, okay? But now when you come down, readjust your feet to see what feels the most powerful, okay? You do maybe 5 to 10 squats, and again, mess with the footing, abduct your feet a little bit, put your feet forward, come a little bit wider, come a little bit more narrow, and see ultimately, or feel ultimately, what is your most powerful squat stance, okay? So this is my most powerful squat stance. I feel very sturdy, I feel very stable, and I can feel my glutes engaging as I'm coming up, okay? Now, if I step forward and push this back a little bit, now I'm still in that same squat stance. If I drop down, it's gonna be the same positioning, right? So whenever you're trying to find your perfect squat stance, which, mind you, after thousands of repetitions, you will be able to more or less get into your ideal squat stance. But to find it, use the box squat test, okay? Now, that being said, whenever I am assessing a squat, the main thing that I'm actually looking for in a good squat is the upper torso being in alignment with the shins, okay? Or that bottom half of your leg below your knee. Now, when I drop into my ideal squat, you can see that my upper torso and my shins are more or less parallel, right? So if I was a little bit kind of hunched forward here, let's say, right? If my hips were really tight and I couldn't drop down into position, you could see my shins are at less of an angle than my upper torso. But what I'm looking for is that the upper torso is parallel with the shins, okay? Just for reference. Now, when you are going to go into your squat, it always starts from the ground up, which is why I started this live with the actual squat test to find your ideal stance, okay? It's gonna start from the ground up. Now, I actually wore my slippers for a reason here, because when you're going into your squat, okay, you have 3 points of contact. You have the ball of your foot behind your big toe, the ball of your foot behind your pinky toe, and then your heel, okay? Now, a lot of the times you'll hear the cue of pushing off of your heels, which is not necessarily wrong. Okay, you will still feel a little bit more glute engagement if you are firing off the heels. But what I'm going to suggest to you today, okay, and this has served me well for glute engagement and just for proper form in general, is 2 things. Number 1, spreading your toes. So thinking of spreading your toes and gripping the ground. Okay, I don't know if you can actually see what I'm doing here, but I'm spreading my toes and I'm thinking of gripping the ground with my toes. Okay, now what that's gonna do is it's gonna activate your arch and keep your foot nice and stable. Secondly, when you get down to the bottom of your squat, actually even as you're descending to the bottom of your squat, you want to maintain all 3 points of contact. So the balls of the feet that I was just talking about, then pinky, then big toe, and the heel, you wanna maintain all 3 points of contact. But then when you're coming up out of the squat, I want you to think of putting all of your force, your pressure, on the outer midfoot. Okay? Now, without allowing the ball of your foot behind your big toe to come off the ground. So you want to maintain that gripped position with your foot. And then, as you're coming out of the squat, you're thinking of putting all of your force into your outer midfoot. Now, this is going to do two things, okay? Number one, if you remember the glute engagement live that I did and talking about abducting your from the hip to actually engage your glute medius, okay? So you putting all the force into the outer midfoot is going to allow you to be a little bit more abducted with the hip and engage that glute med, okay? Number two, it's going to keep you stable because more often than not, if you're trying to push all of your weight into your heel, it throws you off balance, right? Especially when you go into like a barbell back squat, okay? So that's the footing, okay? So we're gonna find our ideal squat stance. We're gonna think of spreading our toes, gripping the ground, and then outer midfoot strike. Secondly, when you are at the top of your squat, so the way, let's say we're doing, because I'm gonna demonstrate with the dumbbell goblet squat. You want to think of keeping your shoulder blades retracted and depressed, okay? But not to the point that you're leaning back. You never want to lean back because you're going to be compressing your lower back, but you do want to think of keeping good posture in regards to your shoulder blades being up, back, and down, okay? But then keeping a tall chest and not allowing yourself to lean back. Secondly, before I actually go to my squat, if you remember, one of my earliest live streams was the belly breathing test, right? So even before you go into your squat, if you want to reiterate that test from that live, one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, take a deep breath. Where does that breath predominantly go? Because that's where you want the breath to be going, into your belly or your diaphragm, okay? Now, before we go into our squat, we have our shoulder blades up, back, and down. We're in our power stance. We're gripping the floor, okay? And we're already starting to activate that glute med by putting all of the pressure into the outer midfoot. Now, we're going to take a deep breath into our belly. And you're going to brace, okay? And as you descend, you're holding that breath, holding that brace, hit the bottom of the squat or the hole of the squat. Then as you break out of the hole, meaning, you're passing parallel on the way up, exhaling all of your air, okay? And that is very important because core stability, especially at the bottom of the squat, is very important. It's very important for protecting your lower back, okay? And too often, I'll see people kind of do this. I don't want to do it the weight because I'm going to kill myself trying to demonstrate and talk. But they'll take their breath at the top, and then they'll get down and either exhale here or at the bottom, exhale. Then what happens? Your core stability, your brace, is going to give out. So you're going to be more likely to kind of break under the weight, even if it is a barbell back squat, right? Because if you lose that brace coming down or at the bottom of the squat, there's a much higher likelihood of you coming forward, putting pressure in the lower back, and then raising the weight with your lower back, okay? So that belly breath, belly brace is honestly one of the most important form cues when it comes to your squat. And I'm going to give you a little kind of like reminding, I don't know what to call it, I guess analogy of like what I think of before I go into my squat. So if for those of you who've been swimming, which I'm assuming the vast majority of you have, before you go underwater, okay? So if this is water, before you go underwater, what are you doing? You're taking a deep breath. And then when you're going down, you're holding your breath, exhaling as you descend back above water. Okay, so I always use that kind of analogy to remind myself of where my breath is being held and where my breath is being exhaled. Now, to put it all into motion, okay, so we're retracting and depressing our shoulder blades, we're in our power stance, we're slightly abducting our knees while maintaining all 3 points of contact with the balls of our feet, taking a breath at the top, bracing, holding, exhaling on the way up. Okay, now, if you noticed, a lot of the previous lives have led up to this, right? Because now all of those little form cues that you can go back to and reference play a huge role in the squat as a whole. Because now when we get to the top of the squat, if you remember, the glute engagement live that I did, we're thinking of tucking the pelvis at the top. Because more often than not, you'll see people squat, and then to kind of get their glutes to engage, they'll push the hips forward and lean back. And again, that's putting a lot of pressure on your lumbar spine. It's compressing your lower spine. So instead of doing that, you're thinking of here, breath, get to the bottom of your squat, to the top, and then we're tucking the pelvis to fully engage the glutes, okay? And it's literally just a little pelvis tuck. I don't want you to excessively do that pelvis tuck because we are in a seated position, for the vast majority of the day, at least like 99% of us. So we are already in a bit of an anterior pelvic tuck. So I don't want you to, overemphasize that because that can also put negative strain on your lower back. But just think at the top of your squat, little pelvis tuck, glute engage. And now you can see my spine is completely neutral. My glutes are fully engaged. My lower back is safe. So, I think that was record time, 10 minutes, sick. Anyways, that was essentially a high-level summary of what a squat should look like and all of the kind of layers of the form going into your squat. And this is something that, even throughout day-to-day life, like if you're going to sit at the dining room table, it might look weird, but so you're sitting down for dinner and you're like, what would be my ideal squat stance, right? Go to sit down, you're like, oh, that didn't feel too good. Yeah, it's okay, right? You find your squat stance. And my point being, throughout day-to-day life, practicing these form cues will only help to solidify them in your mind. And then I can safely tell you that after 12 some odd years of training, this is what's gotten me through, right? Because all of the things that we're going through in these lives and just in general when we're lifting in the gym, it's very transferable to real life, right? But you have to make the connection and actually start to practice all these form cues in real life, and it brings it full circle. But anyways, it is lunchtime, so Coach Cruz is logging off. For those of you that tuned in live, God bless you. For the rest of you, I do hope you catch this this video on the replay, because squats. Who doesn't love squats? We all need more squats in our life. Anyways, Coach Cruz logging off. Peace, love, all the proteins. May the gains be with you.